Hello? Can you hear me? Ah. Hi. Oh, can you hear me okay? I can't hear you.
What about now?
Uh-huh, there we go.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sometimes it's connected to my microphone, sometimes it's not. So it is now,
Yeah.
it looks like.
Oh, wonderful. So what time is it where you are?
It's 3:09.
Oh, okay. So we're about 3 hours apart. You know what? Hold on, I'm gonna plug in my computer again so that it doesn't run out of battery this time.
All right.
Okay. So one, thank you. Thank you for creating the time and the space to connect with me. I'm so excited to play and to flow and just see what comes through our beautiful conversation. And
Yeah. Likewise.
yeah, so the first thing that I would love to ask you is about how to be a motherfucking legend and how that was birthed and what it means to you, and what the core concepts of that program are.
Okay. So I started How to Be a Motherfucking Legend one day in my kitchen on Facebook Live because um, I'm a big fan of hip hop culture, and hip hop culture has a lot of swag to it, and I feel like it's the most popular art form in the world because of that swag, right? Like people want to know how to feel cool and to access that vibration. And what I actually experienced in my community was a lot of like low self-confidence, and a lot of that was perpetuated with self-deprecation.
Mm.
No one was willing to claim that they were good at anything. Like I think in our culture we have this idea that if you say anything positive about yourself, you're like being egoic in some way. But I don't think that's true. I think there's such thing as a healthy ego. Like it has its place, just like the mind has its place. It's just not the ruler of us, right? So it's important to be confident and to express yourself with confidence in the way that you're choosing to show up for the community, right? So the example I always give is if you went to a restaurant, like part of the experience is you asking the waiter, like, what's good here, right? And then the waiter says, the salmon is delicious. It's like, it's fresh. It's like blah, blah, blah. And part of the transmission they're giving you affects the way you experience the food.
Mhm.
So the same is true for any type of offering that you're sharing with somebody. So for instance, I do photography and storytelling. That's one of the things I do. So if people were to ask me like, oh, do you do portraits? I'd be like, yeah, I take great portraits. Like I can make you look beautiful, so
Yeah.
that they feel safe and confident to trust me to perform that service for them. And a lot of times in the community, people would be like, I'd be like, oh, you do this. And I'd be like, oh yeah, like on a good day, or something like that. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good, like
Mhm.
energetically. So all I did in the Facebook Live that day was to say, hey, like this is not cool. Like we have a lot of work to do collectively as a community. And in order for us to be aware of how we can show up for each other, I need to know, that you're a channel, and then you can help me manifest things. I need to know that this person can take pictures for me. I need to know this person can make food and like be my nutritionist. Like I need to be clear on that.
Yeah.
So I just expressed that, and it was really well responded to. And people were like, "You're right. I am a motherfucking legend." And they got it, because when I say I'm a motherfucking legend, I'm just speaking for myself and inviting people to mirror that frequency back. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. Like everyone is equally awesome. They're not equal, but they're equally awesome. You just have to stand in your power and claim that. So I did the Facebook live videos every once in a while for several months. And there were a certain group of people that were continually following those updates. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should teach a class on how to be a motherfucking legend. And someone commented, they were like, I would take it. And I was like, really? Because I was just talking shit. Like I wasn't being serious, but I was like, okay. So I started studying life coaching, asking my friends about it, reading books about it. And I was like, I can do this. This is like, I kind of do this already, like holding space for people and turning them back towards themselves and like reflecting back their greatness and all these things. So then I started coaching people one-on-one and started doing a podcast to share the wisdom. And right now I'm doing my first group program and it's great. We got about like 15 people in the program and I'm calling them forward to step into their most authentic and powerful selves.
Wow. Just absolute wow. Thank you for doing that work. Thank you for having the courage to do it and to bring up a very important point of self-celebration and collective self-celebration. So I think that our ultimate power is actualized or really fully realized and embodied when we celebrate our sovereign self as much as we're celebrating the world around us. And I know it's such an interesting topic to get into around humility and what humility actually is. And as you were sharing, a quote popped into my awareness from the Gene Keys where he talks about somebody who's truly humble wouldn't mind others thinking that they were arrogant. And I think it reflects on a lot about to what you're saying. Where it's so vital and important to hold ourselves in that frequency of greatness and really honor the source that we all are, each of us. So
I so agree with that. I love the Gene Keys. And I think that's exactly it. Because if you are being self-deprecating, then you're bringing the attention back to you, right? Like you're either like when you're in the ego, you're saying, I am this, I am beyond whatever. And then when you're being so small, you're also bringing the attention back to you just on the other pole of that. So the medium is in the middle, right? Just like acknowledging your gifts and being like, yeah, I can serve you in that way and I can do it well. You know, you rest easy that I can support you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for people to know, and that trust piece is huge too, right? So you having that inner security and confidence and certainty and conviction about what you're doing is also going to establish a degree of that empowerment in them just by being in your frequency.
Exactly.
And you know, that's really to come into our empowerment. That's a huge part of the game, is to really feel and resonate at that level, and then we can really start powerfully creating. You know, so it's huge. It's I think it's foundational.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So there's another thing that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned. Well, if it's meant to come back up, it'll come back up. But
I love your red, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I haven't worn this yet, and I've had her for a minute. It's so soft. I wish I could let you feel her. I was just equality is what I wanted to talk about energetically. And but while we're talking about things, I just got this crystal, and I was at a store called Gypsy Soul.
Wow.
And she spoke to me, and she is from the bottom of the ocean. So these stones, I don't recall the name, but we just developed such an intimate connection almost instantaneously. So I just, you know, she spoke to me and I said, okay. So I brought her home. But they come, thank you. They come from the bottom of the ocean. One of the ways that I remember my power as source, as an infinite galactic creator, is to tune into the energy of the ocean and the majesty and the beauty and the profound glory that you can feel when you go to any place in nature that is grand and majestic in that way. And am I still clear?
Yeah, you clipped for a second, but
okay, cool. But that energy helps me feel my equality to all that is. So it helps me feel my interconnection through that quantum holographic web that unites all of us. And it just inspires this depth and breadth of passion in me to really support all of us. So that's like one of the main places where I draw my own power in my work and just in life in general, is that we're this family unit, we're this interconnected, fused family unit. And how great is it to know that we're all in this together, and that we're all serving and playing and sharing and supporting together.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that, and um, this idea of equality can be misconstrued because we're not equal. Like, we're obviously different, but we have equal value, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, like in nature has a symbiotic relationship. Like, some things nurture, like the bees pollinate the flowers, and then this happens to that thing, and it's all interconnected. Or maybe a more mainstream example is like on a sports team, right? Like on a football team, you have a quarterback, and then you have like an offensive lineman, right? And like the quarterback is obviously a much more glamorous position, and they're going to get the accolades. But a quarterback can only be successful when they have a good offensive line, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a support system throughout the interplay of human connectedness, So
Mm-hmm.
I think a wise person understands that when they succeed, it's because they are supported,
Yeah.
and then they want to support other people in return. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how you stay grounded as you ascend.
Yeah, and free as well.
Yeah.
Free through that mutual support and connection.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of my big patterns was, and I still sometimes, this is one of the bigger ones that I can get into, is taking on so much instead of delegating to source, is what I call it, or delegating to life, or just asking and hiring out and doing all the things that I need. I try to take everything on. And I'm like, wait a second, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just have to check in and really go, why am I doing this? And I think for me, it's just been such a pattern of having to do that throughout my life that I've carried it forward. And so it's
Right.
opened up a whole new space of freedom. And, it allows me to really be in my zone more often, which is also huge for freeing up energy. And I love that you spoke to value. That's such a powerful word. It has such a powerful resonance to it. And actually, when I got that stone, I said, "What is your name?" And she said, "Value." And I was
Wow.
like, "Of course you are." So I keep her on my heart when I do some of my visualizations, but that establishment of value within ourselves and the recognition of that value in everything, the true beauty and the value. I think that's one way to reconcile opposites, is to really recognize the value in everything and to see it as a part of us.
Yeah, totally. If you recognize the value in everything, that means you're in acceptance of polarity, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because there's night and there's day, and then there's
Yeah.
comfortable emotions and there's uncomfortable emotions, but they all serve to create this experience that we came here to have,
Yeah.
So it also just feels better to value things and appreciate things. Like,
Yeah.
the reason why, people often tell me how good my energy feels, like to be around, like in my presence.
Mhm.
And some of that I think is innate with the signature I was born with, but a lot of it is consciously cultivated because
Yeah.
I go around appreciating shit all the time because it feels good to me, right? Like if you walk into a room, it's like you could focus on a million things. And usually what I focus on is like a person and something I like about them. And then I'll
Mhm.
tell them that,
Oh, very
like
cool.
I did with your shirt. I'll be like, I like your shirt. Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm constantly attuning and reinforcing things that I enjoy about my experience. So then that's all that I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And if there's something that's uncomfortable and it's challenging, then I learn how to see it in a way that serves me.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, that was especially useful in relationships because, the point of
Mm.
life is growth, right? To become more aligned with source, right? And, um, relationships are a big part of that, especially for me. I have a lot of Libra and Venus in my chart.
Mm-hmm.
So, relationships are all to serve. And just like in sports, well, somebody can try to like stop you from scoring. Like maybe someone is challenging you in a relationship and bringing up your shit and bringing up your trauma and triggering you. But ultimately, that's so you can heal those things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to step back and say, wow, this is actually a really sacred container because there's no one else on the planet that can trigger me the way that you can. There's no one else who can like make me see this space inside of myself that needs love and needs to be healed. So thank you for that. Thank you for allowing me to become present of that, and then doing the work to go in and fix it yourself. Because for me, my truth is, if there's any relationship in your life that you have anything other than thank you to say, then you have work to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's that cultivation space. That's that deep inner work coming into a space of accord and oneness within ourselves, so that we can meet life in that way. And I think that has a lot to do with following and trusting our intuition and doing the things in our own life that align to our own inner compass and intuition that will help us feel our best, feel amazing, maintain and expand our own alignment. And then it's much more natural and graceful to meet life in that way. Because when you feel great, life's great. When you don't feel great, life's not great. And it's not ever anything to do with the person or the situation. It's just about, what we have happening in our own inner world. And which is why I'm huge on flow, because the definition of it is it's a state where you feel your best and perform your best. But the feeling, the frequency space is everything. It literally is everything.
The ultimate currency.
It is the ultimate currency, and that it can translate to physical currency when you direct it.
Yeah, you know about that well.
Oh yeah, well, I trade it. So yeah, and it all starts with that vibration, because you really, the joy of life is yes, it's in the grand moments, but the moments that are grand become grand because we feel connected. We jammed on this a little bit during our last call, but it's just it can be the smallest moment, where you're not even expecting anything big to unfold, but you see a totem, or you connect with a person serendipitously, or some kind of a miracle happens, and life just blows you away. But the truth is that that's something that you cultivated in your own being, and it actualized and it generated and materialized in the physical world, and now you get to experience it. And it's like, so those spaces of cultivations are huge, because that's where we generate all the magic, and
totally.
So good.
It's so important to be in the receptive state,
Always.
I'm an Aries, which is a very masculine sign, the ram. It's like always charging forward and like learning through conflict, like butt heads with things. And I remember one time I read a tarot card that said, you cannot reach God as an aggressive invader. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? In my Aries way, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But 7 or 8 years later, I finally get it. It's like, you have to have balance between your feminine and your masculine energy, and the feminine comes first. Like, I remember, it's like sometimes we may feel like there's no one out there supporting us, and all that is like we're not open to the support. We're not creating space within ourselves to receive it. I just had this memory as you were speaking of being in New York and sitting in Central Park, and I was there by myself, just in New York visiting, and I had been walking around like kind of like looking for something to do, right? And then I decided I was just going to sit down and just chill, right? Just sit there and just like let life happen. So I sat down and I was just like watching the world go by, and I looked in the trees and I saw like kind of like a vortex open up in the trees, almost like what you would experience if you were on mushrooms, but I wasn't on mushrooms. and they kind of like waved at me, and I like looked at them and I was like, whoa. And then I looked over to my right, and there this woman was smiling at me sitting on the bench, and she just started talking to me,
Oh.
and she was like, we started making conversation, and then she was like, hey, I like your energy. Do you want to come? I have an extra ticket to this movie. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, sure. And I walked with her to go see this movie. It was this like obscure French society that showed movies. And it was in this really cool theater. And it's not something I ever would have known about or
Mm-hmm.
found myself. You know what I mean? And like, I only was able to have that experience after I stopped seeking it. Like when I
Mm.
just said, I'm just going to sit here and be present. And then Spirit was like, okay, there you go. You created an opening for me to put something in.
Yeah. Oh, that's so huge. I remember when, well, one, I just wanted to reference the feminine leading the masculine. So the feminine always comes through to lead and guide the masculine. So it's important to always receive and open to receiving first. And I have done this in my life, certainly. And I know a lot of people try to go directly into the masculine without first having allowed the feminine to flow through. So that's a beautiful way to open that channel and that cycle, is to always come into the space of allowing first. And the other one was when I was shown that results are not from concentrate. And it's funny because so much of the research on flow talks about, this laser lucid clear ultra concentration, and it's true to an extent, but it's not a completely mental concentration. It's more of a vision. It's more of a frequency that's coming through that we're allowing to channel from the space of pure soul versus a pointed mind space. And so they also talk about how we shift outside of ourselves and we feel profoundly liberated for the first time because there's no self-consciousness. And that's really what's happening. We kind of we do shift outside of ourselves so that source can fill us and move through. And that's what ends up, that's the space of lucidity, is when we have that alignment to pure positive photonic source energy and light, and we're just allowing that, and our devotion is staying aligned and attuned to that, to hearing it, to seeing it, to feeling it, to trusting it. And that's the point of clarity, really. And so the results not being from concentrate. And it's an interesting thing, because in the space of co-creation, there is the cultivation space of our vision, right? Where we go inward and we start cultivating the frequencies of the end result. But the how, or, all the details that are going to connect the dots from here to here, who we're going to line up with along the way, and exactly how that thing comes to us and manifests, to put our focus on that would be to just create an enormous amount of resistance. So it's almost like the visionary space to cultivate the feeling of results, because it's really all about the feeling. It's all about the frequency. And it's not ever really about the actual result itself. It's always what we think that result is going to help us feel like.
Right. Yeah.
So
that took a long time to learn. And I personally, I know I went on my own, like the journey of the ego to that end, like feeling like if I achieved certain things, and if things played out a certain way that I envisioned, that I would feel complete in some way. And I experienced that in my career, and it didn't give me the feeling that I was looking for, so that was like a very humbling process, because I spent like 6 years kind of like building towards being seen and being recognized as an artist, and putting in work day after day, and not being balanced in how I was taking care of myself, and just and overextended masculine, right? And you mentioned that yourself too, about just wanting to do too much, right? So that's another manifestation of like the patriarchy. So people think that the patriarchy is only about like the way men mistreat women, but it's also about an imbalanced energy in ourselves, having the masculine like dominate the feminine energy, where people are so productivity oriented and mind oriented, and logistical and linear. It keeps us from being tuned into the magic, right? So
Oh yeah.
in actuality, like everyone's suffering because of it. So it's something that everyone needs to focus on healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or liberating, releasing into our own freedom, feeling, and that's really where the magic happens. That's when all the resistance comes off. And like you said, you just sat still and you created that opening, and then that marvelous experience just flowed into you. And it's the same way with money and resources. When we just let the energy be light and free and easy around whatever it is we're trying to create, there's space, there's spaciousness, there's room for it to come in and flow into us. And that's so pivotal to cultivate that. And if we're always driving, then we're not opening those spaces to receive. And so then the impulse then is to drive harder.
Right.
And it's not effective. So one thing I love to do is help people maximize their energy, time, and space to create the most with the least amount of effort and the most amount of pure flow, it's that clean, clear, pure, positive, exhilarating, ecstatic energy, almost like, springtime. And you're just like, yes, I get to create this thing and I'm so stoked about it. And I'm going to have all these amazing people join me. It's just so pure. And the results that come back from a creative space like that are, exponential. I mean, it just 10x faster and more augmented as well. So receiving even more in return than we would if it were, because when you're in that driver, you got to constantly be hammering away at the nail. It's like, is it in yet? Is the house built? Oh man. Instead of just being able to, everything's complete and I get to be here in my luxurious environment and enjoy my home and enjoy my friends and my life. It can be easy. And by easy, I mean, it like is just with ease, with grace, with flow. And it's this beautiful space of, well, it's absolute presence, being in the visionary space, being in that high frequency. And it's this gorgeous balance between being in pure creation and being in a space of allowing and detachment simultaneously. So it's the way that I experience it is Eckhart Tolle actually speaks to these three fundamental concepts of non-judgment, non-resistance, and non-attachment. And that's exactly what that space is. And one of the ways that I support people with cultivating it in the way that I see it, because I'm looking in the source perspective in that direction, is to first cultivate a feeling of being free. So what would it even be like? So this is one of the just main exercises that I have people go through in the wealth training. Right now, if you took a great big deep breath in and you asked yourself, if I had $1 million in my bank account right now, and I was completely safe and I was completely free to move in any direction, I had mobility and choice freedom, all of this, how would you feel in your body? How would you shift? How would you change? How would you adapt? What would you do differently? How would you live your life? And to base your point of creation off of that space. So to cultivate a feeling of freedom first and foremost, and to continue to expand that so that you're creating from your most authentic alignment and not from a space of need or scarcity or lack or trying to fill something that's not there. But I'm fully supported by life and I'm free. And then the next one is to look for the beauty in everything. So no matter what's going on, to find the perfection and the beauty in it. And so that reconciles all the opposites. And even if, one of the spaces and places, I'll just use myself as an example, where I can be hard on myself is when I have a big list of creations that are in the work and it's not getting completed up to my standard of speed. And then I have to remember, even though we are all, hybrids and accelerating into our superhuman nature here, it's so important to find that balance between rest and the doingness, and brings it back to that main. So I try to, I look at, okay, right now I'm just going to go deliberately into the space of receptivity and allowing it to be there with absolute confidence and conviction, just like I would be if I were. So applying those same principles to the space of receiving, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it, because that's my core. That's really my core pattern that I've had to really be present to is guilt, feeling guilty for not doing enough, for not, you know, because there's so much love that I have in my heart. See, I could just cry talking about it because it's so important to me. Is because there's such an ocean of love in my heart and knowingness for who and what we all are. And I sometimes go, why is not every being on the planet feeling this and knowing this about themselves? And I put the weight of that on myself to do more and work faster. And so I get to go in those spaces of learning how to trust and deliberate reception.
Yeah, I feel you. So what I was hearing was that sometimes when you're working on something and you feel like all the things you have to do are piling up and they're not kind of happening at the speed at which you would like, you start to feel like maybe like anxiety and guilt because you feel like you should be doing more, and you want everyone to experience like their fullness and the kind of joy and radiance that you feel, and you just feel bad that they don't experience it, so you feel like you need to do more to help them experience it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to spread. I need to amplify my own impact. Is what I feel. I feel like the resonance of my heart and my soul, and is really just the source that we all are, that's channeling uniquely through me, needs to be, you know, amplified. And so there's you know, and I trust the journey. I trust that my entire life has been a very profound catalytic journey, and so I trust where I'm at, although my mind sometimes comes in and goes, why isn't this, you know, out to everyone? And then that's another piece where I have to remember that we're all in this together and I'm not alone, and everybody's working, you know, to support collective unity and love and interconnection and co-creation to really facilitate the building of a new earth. And so it's just something that I have to remind myself of, because, you know, I was born into a family of incredibly hard workers, and in the industrial, you know, boom of our century in the main location of that, near Cleveland, Ohio. And so I was raised with that ideology. You work hard, you know, and everyone in my family either owns a business or was at, you know, top management or, you know, executive positioning in major world companies. And I was always, you know, the general manager of the businesses that I was in when I was in corporate. So that has been one of my main patterns to really unwind in many different ways. And I notice when it shows up in my work, in my business now, and I just have to remind myself of the wisdom that I've learned and that I've gained through my experience, and just allow myself to even come back in and just let life give to me, you know, just let life give to me.
I feel like I totally get it, especially the family's way of being. And you know, I'm sure you're familiar with like ancestral trauma and that being passed on between lineages. And you know, the Great Depression wasn't that long ago. Like our great grandparents were around for that experience. And then in the American way of being, it was all about hard work. Like you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you create the American dream by doing this. And it's like, that was one way of interacting with the world that I think maybe produced some good things, but now we're in the kind of like the tail end of that, and we're seeing how it's like, actually its time has come. Like that's not the way to be anymore. And it's having us like use up all our resources and not be mindful about our consumption, and just like be disconnected in that way. So even though we are here to embody a new way of being, we're still carrying that way of thinking and that sort of like embedded trauma from those other states of being into our experience. So we hold both of those codes. Right? And I feel like the work is to not ignore that exists within us, but just to like feel it and be like, I feel it. It's okay. I hear you. And you're not going to run my decision-making process, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
the antidote to that feeling, which to me is a contracting feeling, is a conscious expansion,
Yeah.
right? And creating more space,
Mm-hmm.
being like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to create more space. And somebody in my program was asking me yesterday. They were like, because I gave them some daily devotionals to do. I'm like, if you love something and you want to build towards something and build to a level of mastery, you need to be doing that thing every day, like with your full presence and joy. And um, you can do mantras to reinforce your goals and like write them down, say them, embody it, like do all of these things and keep track of your streaks.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, what if I, miss a day? I was like, then start again, like that. It's
Yeah.
like the path to ascension is not linear, right? And we're not perfect. We're human.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
just the process of being aware of where you're placing your energy and being able to understand that you have control over your experience,
Mm-hmm.
because if let's say I've been on a streak of like 20 days, or for instance, I am on a streak of, since October 13th, when I took my Vedic meditation training, I meditated every day,
Yeah.
right? So I've never meditated that long before consecutively, and my life has leveled up in so many ways.
Yeah.
Right. So I can see the correlation between me sitting with myself and what I'm creating in my external reality.
Yeah.
But also within that time, I've been inconsistent with the amount that I exercise.
Mm.
Right. So when I see that I haven't exercised in like 4 days, and I also feel like a sort of lethargy in my being, it's not like, oh, why is life so hard? It's more like, oh, I haven't been exercising, I can
Uh-huh.
take responsibility for what's going on. So it's just bringing that awareness into
Yeah.
my reality, that I am the creator of my reality.
Absolutely, on all levels. And that if you were to look at it's my flow training is very similar. It's because what I've learned for flow is my rituals are on point every single day, and I know that I have to do them to stay in alignment. The one space that I overwork sometimes. That's the one space. But it's mastery. Mastery truly is having an integrative approach to caring for, intending to, and stewarding all the areas of our life, really from the inside out. Our mind, our soul, our body, our businesses, our service, our creative projects, our spaces, our environment, all of this, our relationships, our finances. It's a relationship that we have with those areas of our life and our reality and our experience. And the more we appreciate them by pouring love into them, by nourishing, and it's like cultivating a garden. And the more we do that in all these different areas of our life, the more they grow and expand. And it's such a beautiful gift to watch that blossoming and that unfolding. And sometimes that supernova explosion when you hit a really massive quantum leap. But that's the mastery, is devoting and committing to that on a daily basis. Now, what can shift around all of that is our approach to it, and looking at it is something exciting, which is why I guide people through the creation journey, because you are the creation of you, is one of the main points that I lead with, is that by doing all of these things, you're creating yourself. You're creating yourself as the opulent masterpiece of your life, and you're creating the super abundant, opulent masterpiece on the external as well. So that's a process that comes, cultivating that inner Eden and then actualizing and materializing it out here. But it's all about recoding. It's about, upgrading our genetics and our genome at a deep core cellular level. And man, that's as we ascend and as we expand, that's always getting more. I know for me, the line always gets more, the feedback loops get tighter. I get called to even, more expanded levels of excellence. And one of the main shifts that I just went through, because I'm very sensitive and attuned to frequency, and I feel it when I'm not in that pure positive flow. And I just switched to 100% raw vegan. I was doing like 90% superfoods with some cooked food. And my body was like, no, sunlight, this, that sunlight is what helps your body flourish and thrive. So, and there's always those little adjustments that we make as we grow and we expand, but collectively we're all starting to embody more light and accelerate to the speed of light. And so, even a lot of the support I provide is around, it's the ascension journey, but it's also the creation journey, how to embody ourselves as pure creation, and then create the life we actually want to be living on all the different,
And it's such an exciting journey. You said it was a relationship, and it is. It's a relationship with spirit, but it's a dynamic relationship.
Yeah.
And there are different tiers of evolution that we experience as human beings, and really as just beings in general. So what got you from one level to the next level is not going to get you from that level to the next level.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it was, then life would actually be really boring.
This whole thing would be easier.
Because by this point we would have figured out, here's the formula. You do step 1, then you do step 2, then you do step 3, and then it's done. It's and that's not how it is. It's that can be true within a certain frequency range, right? But a person has to tune into their frequency and decide what's right for them based on their intuitive guidance. So where you are in your spiritual development, it makes sense for you to be a raw vegan or go on water fast, because you're vibrating at such a high frequency. So you need food that's meeting you at that frequency, right? But there's all different levels of human experience. So just because you eat that way doesn't mean it's the universal way for everyone to eat. It may not be the right way for someone to eat, for me to eat right now, but it may be the right way for me to eat right now, like that, in 6 months. And you don't know that if you're not connected to the present moment. You have to stay connected to the present, right? And I feel like that's spirit's way of making sure that you are being present.
Yes. Oh, that's so exquisite. And thank you for that, because it really is, and this is through all the 13 dimensions or tiers that I teach. There's, evolutionary scientific guidance around what can be implemented to unlock free energy in each of those energy spheres. And they each correlate to a different octave of consciousness and creation. So hold that in your mind, and I want to circle back to that. But there's so many choices there. And what I present is this will work if you're committed to it and devoted to it and go into it with a positive, optimistic, life enhancing outlook. And also your body will tell you exactly what you need in every moment. And so here are choices to get your, imagination, your vision moving in the direction of health and life enhancement. These are things that will support you. And, that's based on, I'm licensed in holistic nutrition and integrative health and sports fitness training and all of this. And actually, I shared a post on this day. I used to be 100 pounds overweight and went through a huge evolution in my own experience with losing that, and then gaining the wisdom and knowledge through my studies, and then ultimately through my own body voice, my own body compass. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And that's why, I offer them as these choices and give the basis for it. But ultimately, it's just about us knowing ourselves and really listening and going, what do I want? What do I need? What do I desire? What is my body asking for? And it's always asking for what it's asking for a very specific reason.
Right,
you need that thing for fill in the blank, and that's so individual and unique. There's no one tailored, this fits everybody solution, because we are so unique and multifaceted and diverse, and that's beautiful. There's times where I wish I still could eat meat because it was so juicy, but my body just doesn't process it well right now. But that's absolutely not the solution for actually some people shifting to having higher protein in their diet and coming off of, processed foods would be a huge up level and an upgrade.
It's all relative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so contingent. And that's where the, knowing ourselves and listening, but then also having, a guide, just a guide or a frame around, that as a human being, you need to get movement every day. You need to create stillness and space in your mind. Body work and sound and music are all important. Connections with other human beings, tending to your business and all these things are important, but the way in which we move into them and play and dance and co-create in those spaces is completely unique.
Oh, I love music. It's like my favorite thing on the planet. And I'm also going to Natural Hot Springs in LA later today and getting some body work done. So I'm very excited about that.
That's awesome.
Self-care game strong.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just scheduled a Himalayan salt deep tissue massage. So it's this. They have these rooms that are filled with Himalayan salt, and then they use these stones that are smoothed to give you the deep tissue. And so excited! I'm so excited.
Yeah, get it. There you go. Nurture that feminine.
Oh, I am. Yeah. And I haven't done one of these in a while, but I would like to do a eucalyptus steam room as well. Those are profoundly clarifying and rejuvenating. One of my favorite things. Have you ever done one before?
Eucalyptus? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
So it's a steam room, and they actually have, eucalyptus essential oils come through the steam. So you're already getting that beautiful cleansing and rejuvenation of your energy. And then you're just breathing in this fresh, clarifying mint. So good. Just cleanse and clear and open and expand everything. Oh, yeah.
Sounds lovely.
So let's see what else you want to explore. Okay, so one other thing that I would love to kind of play with, and this is a little bit risque, a little bit esoteric, but I think it'll be fun to go here, is on the space of speaking to everyone and everything being equal in value, but not everyone and everything being equal. And one of the ways that this has shown up in my experience is via free will. So first, before I dive into my perspective, I want to hear what your perspective is on free will, and do you think that we all have it?
Okay, before I answer, I just want to say that I have about 10 minutes left before I have to prepare for another call, but let's dive in here.
Okay.
So free will. So I believe we have choice. So yeah, depending on what your definition of free will is, then it depends. What I think is going on is that we're all going back to source, and that's like where the GPS is directed us to go, everyone. And source is an artist, and we're all unique expressions of source. So therefore, we're supposed to create our own path to return to oneness. So that is happening no matter what. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks about it. Like, that's like, to me, the natural expansion and then like contraction back into oneness and then expansion again. Like basically we are source consciousness breathing, right? Like it's unified, and then it explodes into an infinite amount of pieces, and then it starts coming back together, right? So to me, that's what's happening on like the biggest scale. But we have choice about how we return to source. So if you're going this way and you're like, you know what, I want to turn left. Your intuition says turn right, and you're like, I want to turn left. You can do that, right? Just like if your GPS says turn right, you turn left. You can do that. Maybe you're not taking the most efficient route. Maybe you're not taking the most easeful route, but your GPS will reroute you. Like maybe there's another way around, or maybe you just have to make a U-turn and go the same path again, like, so that's to me where the like free will comes in, and then you get to choose kind of your path you take and how long, if we're talking about time as if it's a thing, how long it takes to get back to source. But the final destination is the same for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That free will, destiny, the ability to choose our destination, although that destination in alignment with pure source. So awareness, where there's one thing, oh yeah, so I was just getting the image of, and this happening in every moment, is that in breath, out breath is us being that unified field, and then fractalizing out, and then coming back up and doing that. And that's happening all the time. And that's even the in-breath and out-breath of our life. This is when we come out into the masculine, as we're up, in the holy heavens, and we're constantly doing that. So staying attuned to that and staying attuned to our intuition. But that kind of comes back to awareness. And there's so many places and spaces we can go in the realm of free will, but let me just draw this in. So the beings who are energy and consciousness, any energy and consciousness, whether it's a person or AI or alien intelligence or any of this, whatever aspect of energy and consciousness that is more awake has more choice power, has more free will, has more influence. And an example that I want to give of this, and also a value of waking up into our own sovereignty and awareness, because one, it requires that awareness of self to even discern intuition and to hear it over the mind. And to differentiate between those two spaces, places, and voices. And so a great example of this would be, does the man who has $20 in his back pocket and knows it have more freedom and ability to choose than the man who has $20 in his back pocket and doesn't know it? Or if you want to build a fire and you go outside to chop wood, you have deep appreciation for that wood and you're ecstatic because you know it's going to help you to enjoy a juicy, delicious fire. But ultimately it is malleable to you and your will because you are more awakened consciousness than it is. And so there's still honor, there's still value, there's still appreciation for that aspect of energy and consciousness, but it is malleable because it's less self-aware. It's less aware of itself. And so the more self-aware we become and attuned to our GPS, our internal compass, the more we can make those choices that are resonant and aligned to pure source energy and pure light and pure radiance and pure super abundance, And that's when I think of super abundance, I'm just speaking to the full sum embodiment of source from the inside out. And that translates into all the different areas of our life, including financial wealth, because what we appreciate appreciates.
Exactly. Yeah, I love the way you made that analogy about the wood, That really plays into my understanding of the different planes of consciousness, because my understanding is that it's like matter, plants, animals, primitive human, genius level human, prophet level human, and then God consciousness realized human. And they're just different. They're different vibratory rates,
Yeah.
One is not better than the other, but just like notes on a guitar, on a piano have different vibratory rates. They're not hierarchical. Like a G note is not better than an A note, but an A note is higher than a G note.
Well, they all serve one another. So it's like we wouldn't be able to enjoy a fire, or even in some cultures, cook food if it weren't for that firewood. And
there you go.
And it's the same, with the food we eat and the actual tools and things that we get to experience and enjoy. And that's why having a relationship is so important, because it's all alive, vital consciousness.
Yeah. And well, you wouldn't need that wood or the fire because you're a raw vegan.
What does that have to do with? Oh, well, I wouldn't need to cook food with it, but I still want to have fires.
I was just making a joke
with my friends. But I would love to hear more about what you're speaking to the different levels of consciousness or self-realization, self-actualization sometime. And just real quick before we hop off, because I wanted to circle back to this earlier, was the way that I see or it's been shown to me that the way that we expand is through vibrational octaves. And so that's infinite. It goes infinitely in and infinitely out into the source field. And then the source field becomes animated. And so that would be the space of the ecstatic dance. So after self-realization comes ecstatic dance and, and in complete synchronized harmony with all that is. What a glorious psychedelic space. But it's like if you've ever seen one of those videos where they pour the salt on top of the table and they hook up the electrodes to it and they put it to a frequency tuner and they turn up the frequency. Well, so what happens is there's so on my website, if you go to the science page, I put all that up there to help people understand the evolutionary journey more. But when we actually go through calibrations and upgrades in our physical body and in our external world, what's happening is a repatterning at a core fundamental level. So nothing is wrong, everything is right. You know, if you're going through an upgrade and you've got to take a few days to rest or calibrate, it's perfectly natural and normal, and you're so supported there. But it's like a seed of life vibrating into, you know, all the different stages until it becomes, you know, it's the fruit of life, then it goes to the flower of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time the frequency goes up, that pattern for just a moment discombobulates and rearranges itself to a higher octave, a more complex, rich
Yes.
pattern. And that's what actually is happening in our physical body and our cellular. Yeah. It's a cool way to, you know, just to look at what's occurring for us frequentially as we expand into the larger pattern itself.
Frequentially, that's so good.
You know,
I'm gonna
because
use that.
our mind, you know, we're like, oh, what's going wrong, or what am I doing incorrectly? And, you know, it's nothing. It just is a normal part of, you know, we're expanding into massive being that is, to be frank, humbling, to the point of tears at points, because of the profundity of love and bliss that is held in that space. And that's what we're all calibrating to, you know. And so, yeah, trust the journey, whatever octave of consciousness, you know, you're experiencing, trust that. You know, there's people who have far surpassed where I am.
We're just the expression of this level of frequency.
Yeah, whichever one we're on.
Yeah, thank you for the frequency that you hold. It's always a pleasure.
Ditto. Thank you so much for sharing space and time with me, and your brilliance and your genius and your fantastic outlook on life. I appreciate you so much, and all the services that you provide for the people in your community, for trusting your intuition, following through on them, and just enjoying the journey.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful reflection. And I really love hearing your genius. And it's like, when I hear that, I really hear like my expression of genius, because I don't believe that we are actually geniuses or actually anything. You know, we're just conduits for different energies that we commit to attuning to. And that's what the How to Be a Motherfucking Legend program is about. It's about attuning to the frequency of genius, because genius is not the final destination. But since I see most humans as being on the like primitive level of human experience, the next level up is genius. So you wouldn't try to teach people to go to to do like calculus before you taught them algebra, you know? So it's like, that's the next step, is attuning to genius and having things open up to you. And then from there, then we'll take it further.
And even at that space of genius being the one source that encompasses all of it in its highest, most dynamic, vibrant expression. So it's like taking the primitive and the primal and all of it and just being that. It's kind of like, you know, your swag, when you got your swag turned on and you're in your sexuality and your confidence and all of that. But being that from like the highest point of pure source energy and expression is so good.
Yeah, you don't stop embodying the lower octaves. You just embody more frequency bands.
Yeah. Yep. You got it. Awesome. Oh man. Well, I appreciate, you know, just the space that we share and that we hold and that we play and dance in. And I hope that you have a marvelous time at the Springs. It sounds lovely.
Yeah. What are you getting into the rest of today?
Well, I have another call, and then I am, of course, going to go into my space of creation.
Well, I hope that you have some time in there for the nurture of your feminine too.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have a nice, juicy, delicious dinner, and I'm gonna go into my visionary space. And you know, I'm a midnight mystic, so to speak. So my most potent, palpable creations come through at night when the energy is real calm and clear. And so yeah, I'll create space for myself, because I obviously want my work to come from the most, you know, optimal frequency. So yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy that space. It was an honor to share space with you.
Thank you, Dijon. Have a beautiful, beautiful night.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.